Board of Supervisors. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for your patience as we work through the service authority. We will start with it. I will give an invocation and then Mr. Miller will lead us in the pledge. So if everyone could please rise. Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, sir. We have two. One is the audit is not ready. They are still working through that and it will be on the next meeting. And then I believe your second one is to amend the agenda to include a closed session.
I'll entertain a motion if anyone would like to make one to amend the agenda.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, we will open the floor for public comment, and I do know we have a number of people here. So I will read off the list. We'll start with the list. If you have not signed up on the list, after the list is done, then anyone that did not sign up is welcome to stand up and provide public comment. Then we'll move and we'll see if there's anyone online, and I'll ask my colleagues if they had anyone that has provided correspondence to them by email. So comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing. So as I said, I'm going to start with my list, and that's Mr. Adam Simonoff.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I say something first?
Mr. Collins?
I'm sorry to change the script a little bit, but I was wondering if we could do the resolution first. The family members need to get back to their loved ones. Would that be acceptable?
Also, my colleagues, are you okay with just doing the resolution? Then we'll do board reports so everyone can hear what the comments are, because I'm sure that people would like their comments to be at least heard and addressed. So yes, I'll entertain that. Ms. Kupka, would you please provide the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by thanking my colleagues for allowing us to go forward with the resolution. I want to recognize family members of Phil Rollins in attendance. His son and daughter are here. Is there anyone else? All right. So first, I will start by reading the resolution and we'll move adoption. And then I will also be presenting the family with a plaque honoring your father's service from King George Fire Rescue and Emergency Services, since I'm their board liaison. A resolution of the King George County Board of Supervisors commending the service of Philip Rollins to King George County, Virginia. Whereas Phil Rollins commenced his service to King George County on July 15, 1991 as a public utilities mechanic with the predecessor to the King George County Service Authority. And whereas on May 7, 2003, Mr. Rollins became a construction inspector with King George County Department of County Engineer. And whereas on June 20, 2016, Mr. Rollins assumed the role of senior construction inspector. And whereas during his over 3 decades of service to our community, Mr. Rollins contributed to and/or managed the building renovations to Fire Company 1, King George Middle School, and Potomac Elementary School. And whereas Mr. Rollins contributed to and/or managed the new construction of King George High School and King George County Sheriff's Office. whereas Mr. Rollins made significant contributions to all water and sewer systems constructed for new residential developments, most notably Hopyard Farms and Project Faith, the Route 3 and 301 water main extension project, the courthouse area water and force main extension project, the extension of water and sewer facilities for Sealston Elementary School, the industrial park water and sewer systems, the Fairview Beach Riverbank Stabilization Project, the Siddell Brooks Jr. Park Project and Picnic Pavilion, the King George Middle School Turn Lane Extension Project, and many, many more. And whereas Mr. Rollins has been a valuable contributor to public works and utility planning and design throughout his service to our community due to his involvement in and commitment to all project phases. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the King George County Board of Supervisors hereby congratulates and commends Philip Rollins for his service to King George County upon his retirement. Adopted by the King George County Board of Supervisors this 17th day of January 2023. Mr. Chair, I respectfully move adoption of the resolution.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Would his family please come up?
It's my fault.
Okay. Mr. Collins, thank you for the suggestion, and thank you everyone for entertaining us to that. So I will now move on to public comment, as I said, 3 minutes per person, and I will start from the list. Adam Simon.
Adam Simonoff, 5340 Gordon Drive, King George, Virginia, 22485. This is my statement. US 301 is an Interstate 95 alternate. Maryland's new bridge now sends twice the traffic into King George County, making it more difficult to visit our public parks. Our outdated intersections to our parks on US 301 should be upgraded. I request that the King George County Board of Supervisors ask road authorities for traffic lights or bypass ramps for our parks on US 301, and to ask our state legislators to change the laws if necessary to address access to our public parks. I have slides that I know I'm not presenting here, but may I provide hard copy to the board?
Would you hand them to Mr. Dines and help make sure we get them?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
very much.
And if you would like to email them, you're always welcome to email them, and we could always add them to the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Simonoff reminded me, please, when you do stand up, provide your name and address as well. So thank you, Mr. Simonoff, for doing that. I'm sorry, could you? What was that?
I thought I did when I started.
You did.
but
No, you did.
maybe-
And it reminded me, and I forgot to mention it during my spiel. So I just was saying thank you for doing that. It
I
reminded me.
appreciate it.
So-
I like to stand here and give speeches every once in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Anthony Stacks.
Hi, Anthony Stats, 9007 Clare Street. First off, it's so good to see so many people out at these board meetings. I go to a lot. It is often just me and a couple other people, so thank you for making your voice heard. I want to remind everybody to keep in mind that their job is hard. Yes, they can make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But let's remember to keep it calm. I want to address the issue that a lot of people are here tonight. The treatment facility on Owens Drive. We have an opportunity here in King George in the next 5 to 7 years to build up our county. You hear me talk about it all the time. In the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to need a healthcare facility here in King George. We have all this space in King George. It's not like we're running out of it. So why don't we move this facility? And I know it's tricky, and I know there's a lot of technicality about moving it, but let's have them move it to a place where we know in the next 5 to 7 years we're going to have a hospital. I would also like to address, there's been some speculation. I talked to a lot of people over the weekend about a tax on wells. I would like that to be cleared up by the board if there is going to be a tax on wells. If there's not, I know it's tax season, I know it's budget season. I would also, like I said in my last public comment, want to thank Annie Kupka for her service on the board. I know she is not running for re-election. So thank you for Ms. Kupka's family, for sharing your mother with us for the last 4 years, and thank you to the members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stacks. I will ask that we don't, I appreciate the applause, and I know Ms. Kupka, I appreciate her service as well, but please refrain from outbursts during anyone's public comment. Kim Clark.
Good evening. My name is Kim Clark. I live at 16842 Fairfax Drive, King George, Virginia. I'm here to talk about the rehabilitation center that's being placed on Owens Drive. Mr. Stonehill, may you raise your hand for me, please? Nice to meet you, sir. I've been here in King George. February will be 3 years. Yet I've never met your acquaintance, and I was deeply disturbed about hearing about this center coming on Owens Drive and not being made aware of it as a resident of the community. I feel strongly having that center over in that community, in our community, will, one, decrease the property values of the equity that we built by being a safe, caring, loving community for each neighbor, for neighbor to neighbor. I appreciate the fact that I see children riding their bikes in and around that community. I appreciate the fact that I can walk that trail without any relative concern about being harmed or running into something that I wouldn't normally run into here in Virginia. Growing up in the South Bronx, I know firsthand what a rehab center can do to a community. I want to strongly employ that we do not do this in this particular community and that we take it someplace else. Another thing that came up today that I didn't even think about, if this facility should have an emergency, they are 40 minutes away from the nearest public hospital. How are we going to cater to those individuals? How are we going to control the traffic on Owens Drive? And do we have the police force to properly safeguard that community? Those are my concerns. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. And as I say any of these names, if I mispronounce, I apologize. Julianne Burtz.
Dirks, hi. Before I get started with my time, I'd like to make a mention that there were a bunch of people on Facebook telling me that they can't get onto the meeting, that they had to dismiss because the hour has gotten late. So there were people logged on to this that may or may not make it. All right, go ahead, start. My name is Julianne Dirts. I live at 16930 Village Lane. I've been living there for about 10 years. I moved there from the south side of Chicago. I'd like to talk to you guys about a couple things. I do understand that there is a need to help rehabilitate people, but not where you guys have it. There are many other outreach places that they can go to for mental health and psychiatric facilities. I did call one place in Fredericksburg today that was actually an inpatient Suboxone methadone clinic. They actually have restrictions for Virginia residents. So now we're not even serving our own people. What's going to happen also when the county decides that instead of going to jail for 28 days, you're going to go to drug rehab for 28 days? I've lived in that neighborhood. Also, we say that there's no access. There is access. I called 2 places today. I can get a virtual appointment, and I can get Suboxone and methadone virtually, and I can go pick it up at the Walmart, the CVS, or the Walgreens. According to betteraddictioncare.com, 90% of heroin users relapse. 90% of people with alcohol addiction relapse. 80% of methamphetamine users relapse. 71% of marijuana users relapse. 23% of cocaine users relapse. 40% of these patients do not even finish treatment. 60% of patients relapse within 1 month to 90 days of treatment. 70% relapse, 75% relapse while in treatment. So that means we're bringing it into the drug rehab for these patients. 85% of relapse return to drug use within a year following treatment. Less than 20% of patients who complete a drug and alcohol treatment remain sober for a year. So we're going to take a chance in our town, in our community, for 20%, for less than 20% of people. You know what this is going to do? This is going to raise our crime up to 30%. This is going to drop my investment in my house and my property between 8% and 30%. What is the police response time now? We are already stretched to our limits with the police department. When these issues start to come up, we're going to see more police, more crime. We've already seen it at the Sheets with the opening of the bridge. The Sheets is where everybody's going to conjugate. Oh, talk about the Sheets. How many drug rehabs have any of you guys been to? Or I can go walk right out the door and get alcohol from the Sheets, from the bar across the street, from the ABC store, or from the Walmart. And if I don't have money for it, I'm going to steal it, because that's what addicts do. I do have a resolution. Do a land transfer. Do a land transfer. Find another parcel of land that we already own in King George and swap it. Swap it and put this place in a nicer location.
Thank you, Ms. Dirts. Dean Dirts. Okay,
He'll be on online comments.
I'll circle back around and he's welcome to once we come to online once.
He's first on the online list.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dines. John Edgar.
Good evening. John Edgar, 4250 Stafford Lane, King George, 22485. I'm here tonight to talk about an amendment to the ordinance so that we can add a micro or commercial winery so that I can open one up here in King George. The differences between what I'm trying to do and the wineries that we have here is I'm not going to be limited to just the Virginia grapes, but I will be able to source from around the world to bring different wines and experiences here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edgar. Mackenzie Heidelmark.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Heidelmark. I do not have a King George address. I'm from out of county, but I'm with Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger's office, here to just introduce myself to everyone. Due to redistricting, King George County is now in the 7th district, which Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger represents, and she's very excited to do so. And this is my first time here. I've been out and about in the county all day, met with some members of the Board of Supervisors and Administrator Miller, and just met some really nice people. I'll be out and about in the county a lot the next few years, so will the Congresswoman. We're very excited to do so. Please reach out to our office if you need anything in regard to a federal agency, if you have an issue with the IRS, Social Security, the VA, anything like that, please reach out. Our number is 804-401-4110. And if the board, if the county is filing for a federal grant, we can write a letter of support. We'll be helping out with community project funding. But please, we are here to serve. Please reach out to us if you need anything, and I look forward to meeting everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heidelmark, and thank you for the contact information. Balja Collingwood.
How's everyone doing? Baldra Collingwood, 4344 Lisa Lane, King George. I live in a Monmouth Village subdivision. I'm here about the Pyramid Healthcare facility that's slated for that area. I recently found this out. I was surprised to hear this. I didn't realize that our area was zoned for a facility like that, but I do understand it's a C2 and that goes for hospital. But I still feel like that should be relocated elsewhere, like with my prior speaker said. Safety-wise, I've lived in East New York, Brooklyn. I've lived in Oakland, California. I've seen rehab centers, and I've seen that there's some bad things that happen with centers. I'm not saying they're all bad. I don't want to typecast them. It is needed in the community, but I don't want that in my community in the Dahlgren area. There's probably other places that's best for it, I would think. There are kids walking about. There are people riding bikes. I use the trail in the back of that area as well. My daughters walk my dogs out there. I'm not okay with the fact that that is what's happening. I'm surprised that I saw that it's under review, but I'm like, who exactly is reviewing it? What's the process for the review? I had to find that information on the planning committee's meetings. I was looking for it on the Board of Supervisors meetings. I couldn't find it. So I didn't know if that's something that's been discussed here or not. But again, I just wanted to come and voice my opposition for that. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if it's too far down the road or not. I'm hoping it's not, and I'm really hoping that this could be moved somewhere else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Collingwood. Sarah Miller.
Hi, my name is Sarah Miller, and I live off of Chatham Drive in King George, Virginia here. I'm going to be very brief, but I'd like to share my thoughts on this initiative, not only as a community member, as a mother, but also as a person who has firsthand seen the impact that addiction can have on families. My perspective comes from my experiences starting from young childhood onward. With that, I'd like to be clear that anyone fighting an addiction deserves support. But while it's a noble endeavor, the statistics of relapsing are not in the addict's favor. The statistics of associated crime of theft, fraud, and assaults are not in the favor of the community. American Addiction Centers report that 85% of individuals relapse and return to drug use. On a report from the Department of Justice, it currently states that 57.1% of users end up driving who are under the influence of either drugs or alcohol. Additionally, property crime increases to a rate averaging 24.7%. Pyramid Healthcare is also a for-profit service. They benefit from these statistics. They benefit from coming to an area that only has partial resources, that does not have the infrastructure in terms of public transportation, healthcare services, both mental and physical, in the community to keep people coming back, to keep their clinic fully staffed, and to keep their profit margin high. Regarding the rehab centers, as I mentioned, they're only one component of recovery. Additional services are needed for long-term mental health, physical health, and social services are also needed to give our addicts the best chance at remaining sober. The community doesn't currently have that infrastructure, nor do we have plans or financial resources to support those endeavors. Regarding the location, the proposed area is one where many people walk, exercise, and where many children are outside playing. If we do allow this, is the town prepared to increase resources to pick up the drug paraphernalia that will be located in the area, to pick up the increase of overall trash? Will the maintenance of cleaning those areas impact commuters and travelers? The impact of the bridge expansion also has not been realized. Will Owens and 301 intersection continue to be blocked by traffic, leading to situations where emergency services are not able to access the facilities, communities, and surrounding area? Will police be able to respond and defuse the situations as needed? Do we have the current staffing for the police and emergency services to support that? And if we don't, do we have the financial infrastructure in place to increase our those forces to be able to support those? For those driven by financial considerations, are we prepared to lose commuters and traveler money as families begin to avoid the area, continue on their way towards Maryland and DC, where they do not have to risk being a victim of petty crime, where their children are not exposed to drug users, and paraphernalia around? Lastly, has the impact to NSA Dahlgren been considered? I'd like to be clear, I'm not affiliated with them, I don't represent them, I'm not speaking for them, but there can be an impact to the service members, and I do know King George greatly values our relationship with them. I realize I speak of the worst case scenarios.
Ma'am, could you please wrap up your comments?
Yes, I was just coming to the last sentence there.
Okay, thank you.
I realize I speak to the worst case scenarios, but my recommendation is not to move forward with the project at this location. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Allison Williams.
Good evening. My name is Allison Williams. I live on 16996 Village Lane. I'm here to speak against the continued construction of the Pyramid Healthcare Facility just behind my residence. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of statistics to bring to you. I can only speak to you as a mother of a 3-year-old daughter. She loves to be outside and play in the front yard, the backyard. If I had her with me here tonight, she would walk up to every one of you and say hi to you or try to get you to pick her up and hug her or talk to you or anything. She's very friendly, still very young. And now I have to be concerned about what if we're outside one day and somebody is just in my backyard and I have to hope I can get back into my house or at least get my daughter back into my house before they can get to us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Willie Williams.
Good evening. My name is Willie Williams. I live in the Monmouth community here in King George, 16996 Village Lane. As my daughter had just said, there's so much to think about when you talk about putting something like this in a community where it's just not needed. You're going to lose 2 good communities. You're going to lose Chatham. You're going to lose Monmouth. People are going to move. We've already suffered through the building of the Automotive Center. We've continued to move forward in all this change. Change is good, but sometimes a change that's brought in under the guise of progress is not good. And this is a situation where this change has been brought in under the guise of progress. People need services. There are people who really need it, but it needs to be someplace safe. It needs to be someplace where they can get the necessary help that they need without putting other people in jeopardy. And this is where it won't do any good where it's being put. It won't. Other children, my neighbor's children, my grandchild, I have to worry about that. I don't want to have to. Maybe one day, but as much as I know how to use one, but I don't want to have to buy a weapon. I don't want that. Don't want it. It's a bad place to put this place. It's no good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Barry Evzent? Is that right? Uzent? Uzent? E-U-Z-E-N-T maybe? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Michael Sharp.
Good evening, members of the board. Michael Sharp, I live at 4386 Lisa Lane, King George, Virginia. I also work there a lot. I appreciate y'all's time and your service. I think y'all have a tough job to do, and I appreciate what you're doing. I'm here to support the other folks who are talking to you about the drug rehab center. That's my neighborhood. I really like that neighborhood. It's a good neighborhood. The people care for each other. As was said earlier, the people riding around on bicycles in that area, little kids. And I'm just concerned about this element coming in the neighborhood and the changes that'll happen there. In the like 10 years, I really enjoy the place. And like I said, I appreciate my neighborhood. I want to support Valja and the Williamses. And I'm just looking for your help with something that I didn't know was coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Iomi Sharp.
Good evening. My name is Ayumi Sharp. I live in 4386 Lisa Lane, King George, Virginia 22485. 11 years ago, we moved here. Actually, I'm from Japan, and my husband was in Marine Corps, and he retired. Prior to time, I did not know anywhere here, part of the places we have been with the Marine Corps. And I do not like this place. I feel like I'm trapped because it's countryside. It is slow. But then it had been 5-6 years past. I fell in love because of people around us right here in residence, it's family. And now I've seen it past 5 years. There's a traffic and backup and accident on 301 bridges. And Owen Drive is all alternate. There's a backup and the weekends and the holidays. We are stuck in a residence for hours and hours trying to get out or coming home. But now we're bringing a rehab. I don't know how long it's been planning, but I know that it was legally purchased, signed, and now grant has been breaking in. So I don't know how, but we just found out 3 weeks ago. So now we're confused and concerned. And I'm one of all those families that we walk our dog, hi to the neighbors, bicycling, walk the streets, and so concerns to so many members we spoke today that safety, traffic, barrier of the house, and King George. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Debbie Fairfax.
Debbie Fairfax, 623 Kings Highway. Good evening, new Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I would like to speak to page 45 of your packet, Green Energy Ventures request for rezoning, which we know is still under review. The applicant has requested rezoning to include a data center and the 2 other uses. However, the applicant has submitted plans showing 12 buildings on this parcel of land. We need to delineate in our ordinances a difference between a data center and a data center campus in the same way that we would delineate a single residence from a subdivision because of noise. I would like to commend the applicant for being open about the anticipated layout, even including the height of the buildings. This is definitely a move beyond the blank check approach taken by other applicants. When I spoke to Mr. Mitchell, who addressed this board in the fall, I asked him how many data centers he would put in that space. And his answer to me was data centers are by right in industrial property. That is exactly what I had been communicating to this board and continued to say after speaking with him. For the near future, data centers as well as battery storage facilities and power generation facilities should be allowed only by special exception, at least until we as a county gain more experiences with these uses. It has been mentioned by board members what we all know to be true. The board has very little control over a private corporation. So the controlling requirements need to be put in place prior to a rezoning being approved. With the information that we now have, we need to make improvements in our ordinances. As I've mentioned, even Loudoun has made updates in the last 6 months. I agree that we don't want to over-regulate businesses, but we do want to properly regulate them. Incidentally, Mr. Mitchell indicated that their data center technology could meet a strict noise requirement. Thank you for asking Berkeley to revisit these uses as we are still in the ordinance overhaul process. They themselves pointed out that data centers come with noise issues on October 11th, but their originally drafted ordinances did not set design standards to account for regulating or attenuating noise. There were other issues covered on October 11th that they presented with regard to data centers that don't seem to be addressed by their original ordinance drafts as well. I only glanced at next week's packet, but I didn't see a floor area ratio covered as is done elsewhere, like in Loudoun. I understand the position that you all took at the last meeting with regard to the change order, but I do hope that in the coming weeks, we can, in consultation with Berkeley, develop an excellent, robust set of ordinances that allow for King George to be well-equipped to regulate these uses, yet open to industries who are willing and able to meet our standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fairfax. Todd Fairfax.
Todd Fairfax, 623 Kings Highway. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, transparent government requires transparency to the public of the information its elected and appointed officials have when making decisions on applications for development. Non-disclosure agreements are the opposite of transparent government. You may be thinking that there are business competition reasons or proprietary secrets that justify NDAs, maybe, and that aspect can be debated. But these cases are much fewer and farther between than applicants would argue, and really the needed duration is much shorter. Once an application is public, it is time for the details to be public. Once an applicant is at a public hearing, it is time for the details previously held close to be disclosed. Supervisors like yourselves couldn't possibly cast an informed vote of the will of the public if necessary information is hidden from that public. How can your constituents engage you, their elected representatives, with their thoughts on, or concerns with, or affirmation of an application if they don't know what you know about an application? With information withheld from the public's voice is stifled and strangled, and I certainly hope that's not what any of you want. In the interest of transparent government, this board should adopt a binding action on itself and the county government employees and appointees that furthermore no non-disclosure agreement will be signed unless there is an explicit provision in that NDA that upon submission of application to the Community Development Office, all details that were previously withheld from the public under the NDA are required to be fully disclosed by the applicant. Your swift action in this matter will increase transparency to and trust from the public whom you represent. Thank you for your attention and action on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Fairfax. Jane Marvin.
Janie Marvin, 4243 Berkeley Court. Okay, good evening. I live in Chatham Village, right off of Owens Drive. Lived there for 17 years. My late husband and I came up here 28 years ago with a promotion for him. My main concern with the planned rehab center is the additional traffic it will add to an already crowded country road. Owens Drive is heavily traveled. It is a shortcut for commuters heading over the bridge or into the B gate at the base. These commuters are traveling from Hop Yard Farms, Presidential Lakes, and all the residential neighborhoods along 206, 218, and Owens Drive. Charles County Public Schools and Charles County Police Department employ hundreds of us. What data was collected on a daily basis for the number of trips on Owens Drive? I myself make a minimum of 20 trips a week, and I am just one person, a widow, living alone with no children in my household. I'm very concerned that we are well on our way to creating another Central Park, Fredericksburg traffic nightmare right here in King George. Please reconsider this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marvin. Debbie Souls? Souls? I apologize.
Hi, I forgot my speech, so I won't be up here long. But I am the manager of Monmouth Woods Apartments. So I'm here basically speaking for 500 plus people. My concern is bringing in the rehab is going to create a lot of issues, not just for me, but for my residents in the surrounding communities. I've been in communities where it was, if I can be open, drug infested. We already have an issue with King George Police when they need to respond to incidents now. Then my concern is I have a lot of senior citizens. I have a lot of single parents with children and a lot of young people starting off. What are we inviting to the neighborhood? It's going to also bring down the value of Monmouth Woods. Then I would have to hire security and in turn get that back from the residents in order to pay for it, increasing their rents. And people are struggling to make ends meet now. So that's my concern. That's all I have for you, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Souls.
My address.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm 17060 Cromwell Place, King George, Virginia. That's the management office.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That concludes my list here. So if anyone else is here that would like to provide public comment that did not sign up, please feel free to approach the podium and provide your comments now. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Patty Odell, 16965 Village Lane, King George. I moved here 2 years ago. I moved from Waldorf due to the increasing crime. My realtor found this house in a small community, 62 homes, one way in, one way out. The neighbors have been welcoming, which is not something you find in Waldorf. I am single, and I feel safe in that neighborhood. I feel like I can walk my dogs at any time of night, any time of day, without any fear. I am not opposed to a building or rehab. That's not my point, just not there at Owens. Not only does it affect the neighbors and the noise control, the lights that the neighbors are going to see from their immediate back deck, but I'm also worried about the safety. I'm worried about my safety too. I have to ask that if each one of you, if this was to affect your backyard, your safety, your family's safety, I just wonder how loud you would fight for this. Also, when my grandchildren visit, we go down the Dog and Rail Trail and we pick up trash because they are saving the earth. I also fear in that if, according to what others have said, the drug paraphernalia will be on the ground. What if my grandkids pick up a needle? They don't know what it is. I mean, who's gonna take care of them? We don't have EMS right there. We don't have police right there. So I'm asking for you all to think about how your families would be, how you would be, and think about us, our safety, and our small community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Odell. Again, I appreciate people supporting, but please refrain after public comments. Was there anyone else that would like to provide public comment?
Tanya Whitaker Harris at 4245 Alexis Lane, King George, Virginia. I'm sorry I didn't sign the paper. I just listened to everyone and their comments, and I just want to thank everyone for coming up. But I did want to ask a question that's a big concern on my heart, is that we watched the bridge for a long time, the plans, we heard the talks, we heard the rumors for the bridge, with the stores that was coming in. This was years that we heard about it, because my neighbors and I, we've been 17 plus years in Chatham. So where I'm going with this is that everything that has happened right there in Dahlgren, we heard about it for years. We saw it come up. But this center, this clinic, and like I said, I'm all for it, like everyone else spoke of it. I see it in my family, so I'm pretty sure other families, so I know it's support needed. But where is the information? Maybe I miss it, and I would love to see it, but I didn't see the same communication about this clinic that we have saw for everything else in Dahlgren. And I guess my question is, why? And I think everyone feels the same way. Why did we not know, or why wasn't this plan put out early enough so we could have the feedback and come and stand in front of you earlier than this right here? So I just want to thank you for your time and consider the families that this is truly affecting and how they feel about it, and especially the kids that we have in the community that feel so safe right now, or the families that have to sit them down and let them know this, that this is coming into their community and that they're going to have to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Anyone else here physically? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Brian Godert, 4371 Chatham Drive in Chatham Village, King George, Virginia. We've been living here, my wife and I and my son, for 11 years now. When my son was first born, around 2 years old, he was known as the mayor of Chatham Village. And the reason he was known for that was he'd go over to people's houses. He'd walk right up to them, sit on their front porch, and they would come out and they would say hi to him. And they say, "Hi, Victor, how are you?" And we actually dressed him up as the mayor of Chatham Village one year for Halloween, and it was a pretty solid costume. He's now old enough that him and his buddies ride on the rail trail. They're all 10 years old. They ride their mountain bikes up and down the rail trail, go to Sheets, go over behind the church, ride that up almost to the park. And as a former smoker, until I found out my wife was pregnant, quit smoking, I got to be honest with you, the hardest cigarette is the last one, because you always want it again. You go out with your friends at work and they're standing outside, they're smoking, you smell it, you want it. You're used to that routine, you're used to that thing. And now we're offering a rehab clinic, which is a good thing. It helps people get on the right track. But the biggest temptation is as soon as they walk out of the door. And if we do have a drug problem in King George, drug dealers are aware of this. Where's that drug dealer going to wait? Is he going to wait down that dark road, down that dark alley, or is he going to be behind the rehab clinic? Because the person walking out that door knows that they want it. They want that temptation. They have that temptation to use again. And if the opportunity is there, they're going to jump on it. So where is that drug trafficking going to be? I want my son to grow up in a good community. I want him to continue to one day be the mayor of Chatham Village, or who knows, aim bigger. I want him and his friends, the neighbors, his friends that come over from other neighborhoods, to all be able to go around that community and not have to worry about what they might find, who they might run into at any time of the day. I want them to have a childhood in a good neighborhood and have King George still be a good place to grow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godert. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Dines, I believe you said that first in line was Dean Dirtz.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Dirtz?
Hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm Dean. I live in Village Lane. So several years ago, each of you either directly or indirectly asked for our support. We supported y'all. You asked us to believe that you would take King George in the right direction. We believed you. And ultimately, you asked us for your vote, and we voted for you. Quid quo. We help you, in return, you help us. People of King George are now calling in your quid quo. Quote, we are asking for your support and your help to stop the construction of the rehab facility and this abstruse location that you have it in. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Dirtz.
Yeah.
Mr. Dines, did we have anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Serenity Board Hinch.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Serenity Boyd Hinch, 4277 Navigator Lane. I'd like to speak about the Substance Abuse Treatment Center planned for off Owens Road. So the Substance Abuse Treatment Center is coming in, which means the county's development plan worked. You attracted a new business to an identified business development zone. So now what? Frankly, I don't expect you to address our individual concerns about decreased quality of life in a few neighborhoods. I do expect county leadership to address the implications of this planned development on the King George community more broadly. Where is the plan for the increased crime that studies have demonstrated you should expect? Where is the plan to ensure that increased crime doesn't mean longer waits for 911 callers across the county, as the Substance Abuse Treatment Center requires a disproportionate amount of emergency services? Where's the plan to increase resources to the sheriff's office so they are not spread even thinner than they are now? Where is the plan to deal with decreasing revenue from properties near the facility, as studies have shown we should expect property values to decrease between 8 and 17%? Where is the plan as businesses leave this identified development area as they experience increased crime and realize they can no longer be profitable in our county? In short, where is the plan to make sure this development doesn't make King George less family-friendly and less business-friendly? We are seeing the fruits of previous planning decisions. I'd ask that you not stop planning now. The citizens of King George have the right to expect county leadership to plan for easily foreseeable negatives and not leave citizens of the county paying the bill for poor planning, figuratively and literally. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your solutions.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd Hinch. Mr. Dines, do we have anyone else?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Did any of my colleagues have any correspondence to read in?
I had one, but she just spoke on the.
Understood. Anyone else? Okay. In that case, I will close public comment. And I will move on to reports of members of the board. And I will start with Ms. Binder.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone that came and spoke. Appreciate your comments, but I do have a question for Mr. Miller and Ms. Lackey. Is my understanding this development is by right, so it would have never come in front of the Board of Supervisors. I do understand that the citizens do want information on it. Where can we direct them information with Ms. Hall's department, or could she come to give an explanation? Because it is by right, so we never see it.
Yeah, that's correct. And so they would be able to go and speak with Ms. Heather Hall, Community Development Director.
Just to elaborate a little bit, because folks might not be familiar with the term by right. So in your different zoning districts, the zoning code specifies certain uses that are allowed, and then certain uses that you have to get conditional approvals or you have to get rezoned for those uses. In this particular district, the zoning allows a hospital. You all can go to the zoning code online. It's through the website www.municode, MUNICODE.com. You can take a look at the definitions there. But it's been the finding of staff that in this case, this particular use is allowed by the existing zoning in that district. Community development would be a resource if you want to see kind of the building plans and the progress, but there's not the authority of staff to oppose the particular use of the property.
Thank you, Ms. Lackey. Mr. Miller, I just wanted to give an explanation for that, because we had never seen this development because it was by right. So it would go through Ms. Heather Hall's Community Development Department. With that being said, I participated in the Dahlgren Museum Board retreat. It was very informative. It's amazing what the future of museums look like and the planning that has to go in to make museums modern and online. I also want to bring on, wish Ms. Bamberger's representative was still here, because I did go over to the library to meet her and she wasn't there. So hopefully we could have a fruitful conversation at a later date, but she left. And so I'll have to reach out. I do appreciate her giving the number. Thank you again, everyone that came out. And then the last thing, I wanted to be transparent to the public. If many of you might know, some may not, there is one audience member. I did coach his son out there. I volunteered to go and coach again at the middle school. I did it for 19 years as a coach, and I'm doing it as a volunteer, and I want to be transparent with the public. I did check to see if it was conflict of interest with our county attorney and the Commonwealth's attorney. There's no conflict of interest, but I just wanted to tell you I'm excited to be able to coach youth again in the community, especially the middle school age. I think it's a great age to get them interested in sports. So I just wanted to be transparent with the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Mr. Collins.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for coming out. It was a great opportunity to recognize Mr. Rollins for his outstanding service with the county. So I'm gonna go through some of these. The micro commercial winery. I was wondering if we could get Mr. Miller to look into that and bring some information forward to the board in regards to that. Don't run away yet. So the Fairfax is I agree with the special exceptions to have those things to come before the board so they can properly manage our county for the future. And I do agree with not having non-disclosure. And it is for the interest of that business, not for the interest of the citizens or the county for non-disclosures. So you've heard me argue for that and be against that, and I continue to be so. So now, on to the Drug Rehabilitation Center. So one person spoke of they missed it. Well, let me tell you this. I didn't know about it either. I'm sitting on your board. I didn't know about it until I read Facebook, which I try to stay away from, but that's where it came from. So I came to the county folks and asked about this. But I first want to talk about some other things. One speaker talked about lights. One speaker spoke about implications for zoning. One speaker spoke about not in my backyard. One speaker spoke about serving our people. One speaker spoke about being confused and concerned. Well, I am all of those. I am concerned. I am confused. I read the ordinance. C2 ordinance says that you can have a hospital, and in that ordinance it says you can have a drug rehabilitation center. Do I want a drug rehabilitation? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I want it there? Absolutely not. Do I have an opportunity to do anything about it? Absolutely not. Can we mitigate this? I absolutely hope we can through some type of fences or something. Would I want it in my backyard? Absolutely not. Do I want it in your backyard? Absolutely not. Am I serving you as one of your board of supervisors? Absolutely not. Not on this issue. I feel like our hands are tied. So we're going to be addressing these zoning ordinances that haven't been addressed for years. And every day things pop up that should have been addressed years ago. From data centers to hospital drug rehabs to pornography shops to cigarette shops to you name it, it comes up. And so the only way we can control our community and what we want in our community is through these ordinances. It can't come fast enough for me. So, one speaker spoke about too little, too late. Unfortunately, they're right. What can we do for the folks down there? The traffic is terrible on Owens, and this is going to cause more traffic. When I spoke with the community development, they said that it's going to be a 100-bed facility, that it's not going to be a methadone clinic. So they're not going to be offering methadone. That's what I was told. That the people come in there, it's 100 beds, and it'll be 2 floors. And once they get in, they can't come out. That's what I was told. I was also told that they don't find their own transportation to this place, but they're provided transportation. And when they leave, they're provided transportation out. Supposedly, it's going to be a locked facility where they can't get out. Well, that's good. I hope there'll be more. I come before my own citizens and I'm looking for solutions too. And only thing I know is what we can do in the future. And if any of the citizens of that area can tell me something that we can do legally, I'm on board. Sorry for my lengthy comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Ms. Kupka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by thanking everyone for coming out this evening and obviously for your patience. That was a late start to this meeting. Thank you all for providing your comments. Mr. and Mrs. Fairfax, thank you as always for continuing to stay on top of the data center evolution as we work through the process. Mr. Simonoff, thank you for your comments regarding 301. I know we have shared a number of emails about that. Mr. Stats, I don't think he's in the room right now, but thank you to him for coming out this evening. And then with regard to Pyramid Healthcare, yeah, we did not see this coming. I can tell you I looked through prior board packets and the first appearance I found was in the Board of Supervisors board packet for May 17th, 2022. It appeared as an application had been filed with the Department of Community Development. It was in the department director's report. Prior to that, I also went on GIS, and it looks to me like Pyramid Healthcare acquired said property at some point in 2022. So this was not anything that we planned for. We did not really see this coming. However, just like Mr. Collins indicated, and Ms. Binder, it is a by right use. It is zone C2. I would also like to read into the record of the meeting an email, and I checked with community development staff before doing so, that we received on Wednesday, January 4th from staff, because many of us visited staff, just like you did. After speaking with a couple of Board of Supervisor members over the holiday, Lewis, reached out to Pyramid and found some additional information I think will be helpful to the Board of Supervisors. This will be a 28-day stay for average patients with the ability to extend up to 60 days. They cannot leave the facility until they officially check out. They will not provide outpatient services such as AA/NA, etc. Not a methadone clinic. patients will not be able to drive themselves. Pyramid provides transportation services. Very rarely will family be able to visit patients during their stay. Once the stay is over, Pyramid provides transportation back to their homes or next step. They will not be released at the door. I'm sure none of this probably makes any of you all feel much better about this, but where it's at right now, as stated, it will not come to this board or the Planning Commission for approval unless they ask for some exception. It's, I believe, in its third revision with staff. So this is an administrative process. How that works is back in May, they filed their first application. Staff looks at it, gets comments from VDOT about traffic impacts, gets comments from the fire department about impact on ability to provide services and so forth. They give their comments back to the applicant. The applicant is encouraged to address the comments from staff. So that's happened. We're now in the third time that the back and forth has happened. So the best that we can hope for is that administratively we are able to come to the most favorable application we can at this point. And again, I invite citizens to make an appointment with community development staff to review the file. It is a public record. You can make an appointment to go visit and inspect the file. And that's about all I'll say about that. I know that's a lot. I want to thank Sheriff Giles and his office for keeping our community safe. Last week, deputies successfully apprehended a wanted subject from Stafford County who was allegedly involved in a child custody matter in which shots were fired. So thank you very much. Thank you to Chief Moody for his successful letter of support for the Rappahannock Area Health District's award of $400,000 for a fully equipped mobile health clinic that will help serve the needs of our rural community. I want to thank King George VFW and the Department of Parks and Recreation for hosting a successful blood drive on January 14th. Their goal was 20 units, and they actually doubled that. They had 40 donations. Thank you to all of you in the community who donated blood. Friends of the Rappahannock is hosting litter cleanups in King George on February 25th and March 25th. You can visit their website to sign up to volunteer. I want to make my colleagues aware the Commonwealth Transportation Board met today. I looked online over the weekend and there wasn't information in the packet at the time, but they did release it today. It is online. You can see the staff recommendations for projects that are recommended to be funded in the Smart Scale process. Unfortunately, we did not have any applications from King George County that were recommended by staff for funding. However, Fredericksburg City did submit a Smart Scale application to support direct commuter bus service to Dahlgren from the city. And it was one of the recommended projects, so I'm hopeful that as the Smart Scale process plays out, the CTB will see fit to fund it. I also hope it will be a precursor for the return of Fred Transit in our community. And one last thing. I move to appoint Mr. Edwin Frank to the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee.
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kupka. Mr. Stonehill.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's nice to see a big turnout, but once again, we always get these turnouts when there's something hot going on. It'd be nice to get people to come out all the time. Mr. Simonoff, thank you. Thanks for all the emails. You got some great ideas and everything. I read everything you send. You have some very good ideas. Just got to figure out a way to make those things happen. But, you know, thank you for being so involved in our community. And like the rest of us about this Pyramid Health Center, none of us knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. Somebody called me about it, and I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. So, of course, I went on to all the major news outlets, Facebook, and found all these comments. And I said, geez, I don't know anything about it. So once again, I called community development and I said, what is this that we're hearing that's all of these, you know, these news networks, Facebook. So they told me what was going on, and it was the first thing any of us had heard about it. And a lot of people came up and they spoke tonight about, you can't put this here, you need to move it, this is a bad place. The Board of Supervisors had nothing to do with that. That was a private development coming in and buying 6.9 acres of land or whatever's in there that's commercially zoned that is regulated to have a hospital/rehab center. Jeff Stonehill, I think it's a terrible place for it. I mean, it's awful place. It's something that we need. And I think, to have a rehab center like that is great for a community and great for everybody around. But I just think it's in the wrong place. So it's here, it's coming. And we just got to make sure that community development and everything goes back and forth with them to make everything that we have in our regulations and ordinances to make it as best as we can. It's just a tough situation when they come in, buy something, and we have no say in the matter at all. If we did, I would be a no vote, but we didn't have such an opportunity. So we're gonna have to make the best of it. I'm sure Sheriff Giles and Chief Moody and everything will, be up to snuff on all that, and we'll see, about security and, the dealing with the people's concerns. So, yeah, I'm sure the county is going to do their best. I know I'm going to stay up on top of it because, like I said, it's not somewhere I would put it. Let's just leave it at that. Just going down my list, the Edgars with their micro winery. I'm going to address that here in a little bit, and Fairfax's. Thanks for coming out with all of your information. And my other colleagues did not mention that we went on a really interesting field trip and we went up to a data center. We went up to 2 data centers up in Prince William. Fascinating. I mean, just really fascinating how those things are put together, or what they do, what they look like, what they sound like. So we went on up, and with the I borrowed a sound meter from Sheriff Giles in his office and went up and took different sound readings throughout the area. Dusted off my golf laser rangefinder, which unfortunately hasn't had any use lately, to take measurements about how far away we were. And we did get within 90 yards of a fully operational data center, and we took sound readings and things. So it was very interesting, very unscientific trip, but very interesting. So, we got to sit there, we got to see them. It's like going to a NASCAR race. You can watch it on TV all you want, but until you actually see it, smell it, taste it, you don't really get an opportunity to see that. So it was really great I really enjoyed it. I hope my colleagues did as well. I think that's it. So speaking of the micro winery, I was contacted by the Edgars actually a while ago and did speak to Miss Hall and to find out how to go about this. Since we already allow breweries, these things that are popping up, distilleries, micro wineries, all kind of fall under the umbrella of a brewery. But these are these new things that are popping up, like Mr. Collins brought up, about things that are popping up where they're antiquated ordinances. These are these new things. So I spoke to Ms. Hall, and she said, that a micro winery would be something right in the same lines of a brewery, which is allowed. So I'd like to get consent from the board to direct Mr. Miller to direct Ms. Hall to get together a text amendment to allow micro wineries in our ordinances like we do with a brewery.
Is that a motion?
Ms. Lucky, do we need a motion for that, or is it just consensus would be sufficient?
A formal motion would be wise.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion, probably seconded. Any discussion?
Can I ask a question? So we would not be creating a new ordinance. We would just do a text amendment on an existing ordinance.
Yes, that's what Ms. Hall said, that we would be just adding a text amendment to the existing ordinance, not something that's new.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stonehill. All right. Everyone, thank you for coming out. Those who have stayed the whole time, and we had a late start to begin with, so thank you for bearing with us. I do echo what my colleagues have said. This is a by right development. I don't like it. I really don't. And I would not be in favor of this if we had the authority to make a decision to say no, because if it were a rezoning request or something along those lines, this is just not a good area for it. It is C2, and it is a by right development activity for that piece of parcel of property. And as Ms. Kupka had mentioned, so our second board packet of the month does have department reports. And so you can see a list of the current activities going on in community development. Does provide a report in there. And so it's a short one. If you look at it, it says Pyramid Healthcare, talks about the tax map, and it's that it's a medical facility. And so that had been showing up in the board packet, and it's probably pretty easy to miss and maybe not understand what it was actually referring to, because it says medical facility, because that's what it is. It just didn't go into the details that it's a rehab facility. So, but if you are interested in being able to understand, hey, you know, there's activities going on, there's new development going on in the community, and I didn't hear anything about it. If it's a by right, it's not going to come before the board. It's something that is handled administratively, because it's something that's just allowed by the ordinance. So it is a place you can look, and if you do have questions, you can go into community development and you can say, hey, I see this new, and it shows up under commercial building projects proposed and or under construction. What is this? And then it would give you an opportunity to hear about it. I'll be honest, even if you got in May, was it Ms. Kupka that you said that the first one? It is by right. And so I understand the concern. I don't like it. I appreciate the safety. I mean, that's the deal, the safety concern to you and your families. And I don't want it there. I don't know how to make it not happen though. And so I'm sorry. If there is a request for some kind of variance or anything like that, at that point, then we could get involved, and I would not be in favor of providing them anything. I just don't want to see it happen. I don't want to see it there. But if they follow all those zoning ordinances that are currently in place for C2, then it is allowed as it is administratively. And as I think Ms. Fairfax brought up, she brought up like the Green Energy Ventures rezoning. So that is a current rezoning project. That also shows, I think it showed up in October for the first time. So you can see that falls under current rezoning requests. So you can see a list of all the current rezoning requests, and those are ones where the board would be involved, because they're now taking a piece of property and you're saying, hey, I have something maybe zoned A1 or A3 or whatever it may be. I want to make it industrial. I want to make it commercial. I want to make it whatever it is. I want to make it high density residential. Those are the ones that will definitely come before the board, and we have an opportunity to weigh in. And we have, the most recent one I can remember is the Villages. You know, that came forth, and it was a fairly high density one, residential development. And we chose not to move forward with it. Didn't feel like it was in the best interest in the county at the time. So those types of situations, you do have an opportunity to weigh in, because it's a rezoning request as to taking a piece of property, buying the piece of property that you can do some activity on. Same as like if you buy agricultural property, you can build a house on that. No one can stop you from doing that as long as it meets the requirements of what the zoning ordinance says to do that activity. And people do have property rights as well. And it's not that I'm not sympathetic to you, so I'm really sorry about the situation out. If anyone has an idea on how legally we could step in, I am all ears and more than willing to entertain any ideas. And I will continue to look, see what can be brought up. I just don't want to get false hope and make it think, oh yeah, something can be definitely done. But you know, if someone does have a good idea, please let me know, and I will investigate it and see what we can do. So, and thank you everyone else came out, the Fairfaxes, Edgar's, who came out about the micro wineries. I know most of the discussion though, and the concern is about the rehab facility development. I think Mr. Stonehill also brought up, I know there were some questions about public safety and the sheriff's department and their responses, and I'm sure Sheriff Giles and Chief Moody are on top of all the situations, and when budget time comes around, they they evaluate their staffing and determine what is needed, and they come and provide those requests and the justifications of why they might need more sheriffs, deputies, or officers in order to provide support and protection to the community. And at that point, we would get involved and make an evaluation of what we could support from a financial perspective. And so that process is starting up. And I would encourage anyone to please come to those meetings as well. Those are more ad hoc. They're not every other Tuesday or every first and third Tuesday. We set them up though. And so you can see them on the website, and you're always welcome to come and speak out upon our budget as we develop the budget for the county. Other than that, I only had one point. I did receive a call from Superintendent Jesse Boyd. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Superintendent Jesse Boyd. Last week, he was mentioning that the school board had requested that they set up a budget advisory committee, and they were looking to have a board member on that, a board of supervisor member, as a appointee to that committee. And I believe Mr. Bush, the chair of the school board, had reached out to Ms. Bender and asked if she might be interested. I told Dr. Boyd I would have to consult with my colleagues. I can't make a unilateral decision like that. So I am bringing it forth as a discussion, and I could reach out to, or we could have staff reach out to Dr. Boyd and let him know if there's a particular individual we would like to see appointed to that committee from the Board of Supervisors. And so, as I said, there was a recommendation of Ms. Bender, so I'll offer that up as the option. And if anyone has any opinion or difference of opinion, please let me know. Mr. Collins?
So I don't mind Ms. Bender being on that board, but I would like to see the school board's budget be presented as one of the first items, since it's the majority of the budget right off the bat, instead of waiting so we can go through this budget better. So that's my discussion.
I think that's a fair request, and I think all the board members would appreciate that as well, because in the past, there's sometimes very good reasons why it takes a while. But I agree with you, it does definitely have an impact on us and our ability to craft our budget. Did anyone else have any comments? Ms. Kupka?
Yes, we're assuming Ms. Binder is in fact willing to serve. Yes, very good then.
I did ask Ms. Binder about it before. It's a fair question, and thank you for bringing that up as well. So she did say she would be willing to. So by consensus, Ms. Lackey, would we need to make a motion, or is it consensus that we just reach out to Dr. Boyd and say Ms. Binder could be the...
I think the consensus approach works.
Okay. All right, then I'm sorry.
Yes, what is her duty for this, to represent us?
I think it's to provide input. And since she is a board member and will be voting on their budget request, she could at least provide her input, but she doesn't represent the board. Like, she can't make promises about what the board would fund, but she could provide her input and speak upon topics. Obviously, it provides her the opportunity to speak and converse with them during their meetings, whereas opposed to, I'm sure everyone would like to have a back and forth with the board, but that can make things very difficult. And so, but if you have a smaller group, it can kind of time box those discussions, and so she'd be able to be more involved in those discussions.
Sounds good. Will she be able to send us emails in regards to what the issues are, and so we can have them on the horizon instead of having surprises?
I'm sure we could ask her to forward any emails to Mr. Miller, and then he would disseminate them to the rest of the board.
Thank you.
That was the idea as it was put, so that we get some more information before it comes in front of us, so we can do our research and maybe dive in, and I could bring questions that you all have back to them before it gets in front of the board, so we can, and the committee is supposed to be made up of a board of supervisor member, a school board member, Dr. Boyd, a staff member, a teacher, and a citizen with a child in the school system.
Okay. I think we have consensus. Mr. Miller, would you reach out to Dr. Boyd tomorrow and let him know that Ms. Binder will be serving in that role?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that concludes my board reports.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, Mr. Stonehill.
Just to go back to the pyramid health things, have anybody have any interest in see if Mr. Miller can get somebody from Pyramid to come to one of our meetings to inform us and the public, and see if they'd be willing to do that?
I'll ask I'm amenable to that. I'll ask my colleagues there. Mr. Collins says yes, Ms. Binders, yes, Ms. Cup, yes. Mr. Miller, could you please work to get them on our agenda?
Yes, sir.
One
you, sir.
more thing for the pyramid. So are there things that we can mitigate for the citizens, like the light and the safety? Can you look into that? What we can do to make it better for the citizens?
I'll certainly look into it. I know they're obviously within the limits of the fact that it's a use by right. I will look into that and let you all know.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chair, jumping on that point, is there a way we could possibly get Ms. Hall just so for informative so that she can give a little presentation of what by right goes into, you know what I mean, how the application just so, you know, the citizens online or watching later on YouTube or that are in the audience could maybe understand the process a little better.
It will be my intent to have Ms. Hall appear at the next meeting to provide a report to you. And then if possible, if we could get the owners or the management at the same meeting, I think it would be helpful. If not, then we'll get them as soon as we can.
All right, thank you.
But we will definitely get Ms. Hall to come and give you an overview of what's going on.
I hope there's a requirement for buffers like there is on quite a few other C2 parcels. But I'm not familiar what the buffer would be.
All right, everyone satisfied? We will move on then. I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We will move on to report from the County Treasurer's Office. We have anyone here? He did not. I don't see anyone from the Treasurer's Office here, so we will move on from there.
Yeah.
Report from Ms. Judy Hart, Commissioner of the Revenue.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Miller, Mrs. Lackey. I want to give you the new update on the sales of the cigarette stamps from July to present day, $984,020. And the total pack of cigarettes sold in November of 22 was 307,134.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Did anyone have any questions for Ms. Hart?
Can you give those numbers again?
Yes. The sales is 984,020. And the packs sold 307,134.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All good. Anything else?
Nope, I think we're good. Thank you, Ms. Hart. Before we move on, Mr. Miller, would you reach out to Mr. Jones? And because we did not receive the receipts for December and just would like to get that information.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Hart provided the monthly cigarette tax collection enforcement report. So Sheriff Giles, enforcement report.
Good evening, members of the board. On December 21st, 2022, Ms. Price and Deputy Simon conducted inspections of all the stores in King George who sell cigarettes. They are happy to report that all the stores were following the county regulations as it results to the King George County tax stamp. Ms. Price also talked with several store managers about their inventory forms and having them turned in on time. They plan to conduct another inspection here in the very near future. On December 28th, 2022, Ms. Price and Deputy Simon completed stamping all the loose single packs of cigarettes from the seizures earlier this year. These were the loose packs that California Imports could not stamp on their machine. Deputy Commonwealth Attorney Clark, Ms. Price, Ms. Hart, and Deputy Simon will be meeting sometime in this year to discuss the auction details and the restrictions for selling of the cigarettes. That concludes my report. Have any questions?
Thank you, Sheriff. Did anyone have any questions for Sheriff Giles? Glad to hear that they were all in compliance this past time. So
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, move on to report of the county attorney.
I'll be brief. On Friday, Assistant County Attorney Jessica Washington and I were admitted to practice in the federal court. We went to the district court for the Eastern District of Virginia, and we sat through a half day of training, which was optional, but for a $10 attendance, it was well worth the admission price. And we were sworn in by 5 of the federal district court judges and 2 of the magistrate judges, who 3 of them were presenters, so it was kind of invaluable to be able to have that kind of opportunity.
That's awesome. Thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Ms. Slacky? Okay. We will move on. We don't have any board commission or agent reports or public hearings, so we'll move on to presentation of reports. I know we had removed the presentation of the annual audit, so we will move on to the VDOT report from Mr. Beal. And Mr. Beal, thank you for sticking around, and it's been a long night already, so thank you for bearing with us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. Mr. Maxey is here with me to hear your concerns tonight as well. He and his team have been busy grading gravel roads. They got Prim and Kings Mill this month. They've been removing limbs at signs. We call that daylighting signs, but not everybody always knows what that means. They've also been repairing signs, patching potholes. We've been trimming trees on Indiantown. It's a season for removing dead animals from the roads. So we've been doing that. We made all of our snow preparations, and we've had the opportunity to test run that one time, and hopefully not anytime soon. But I doubt we get through February without a little bit of the white stuff. We've repaired ditches and shoulders on Route 3, and we've been doing some ditch cleaning on Pine Hill Road. Upcoming is more of a lot of the same. We do have some shoulder repairs planned on Birchwood Creek Road. We have a pipe replacement at the intersection of Bloomsbury and Caledon on schedule, and the tree trimming on Dickinson's Corner has been done, and Washington Mill is planned. Secondary 6-year plan, we still have Prim Road to hard surface Prim Road on the secondary 6-year plan. We currently have that slated as summer 2027, but there are some leftover funds from this year. I do anticipate being able to move that up several years. We still haven't determined how far we'll be able to move it up, but we will be updating the secondary 6-year plan this spring. So that'll probably be the April meeting when we do that. The smart scale projects that were previously awarded, 206, 218 was out for bid, and M&F Concrete was the apparent low bidder. So we're working to get under contract with them. Their bid was just under $600,000. So we expect construction to begin on that early this spring. The 3013 project and the University Drive double R cut, they're planned for award in early 26, and they are under design now. Structure and bridge projects, if you recall, the scour repair project on 301 at Pine Hill Creek, it went out to bid last fall and came back well above the estimate, and for various reasons has not gone back out to be re-advertised yet. I do anticipate in the coming months that it will be re-advertised. The bridge on Prim Road, the deck, the superstructure, that's the top part of the bridge, is going to be replaced this summer. And then the beam-in repairs on 603 over the railroad, that project will begin in March, and I anticipate about a 3-month duration. They will have a flagging operation when they're in the roadway. Those hours are from 9 to 2:15 Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you recall, last fall, the board requested I'm moving off my report now onto my notes. So, the board requested a through truck restriction on Route 206. We are in the public comment period for that, so I have been receiving comments by mail and email and that comment period runs until February 5th. Ms. Kupka touched on the SMART scale, the CTV meeting this morning. Unfortunately, none of the 4 projects that King George submitted were recommended by staff to be funded. She did mention the Wood-Fred Transit Express route to Dahlgren, and that project consists of 3 bus shelters. 2 of them are on 206 at Gate A, and then one of them is on 301 at University Drive, right there by the Walmart. We do have some Highway Safety Improvement Fund projects planned, shoulder widening and rumble strips on both 205 and Route 3. And the 205 section is from Route 3 to 301, and then the Route 3 portion is Route 3 westbound from the Stafford County line to Lambs Creek Road. And that covers everything I had on my report for you all. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to take those.
Mr. Beal, I appreciate you coming out and providing the update. It's glad to hear you're ready for snow. I'm really hoping we don't get any at all personally. I don't have any questions. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Mr. Stonehill, start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal, coming out. When I was coming to the meeting today, right there at Dahlgren, St. Paul's, Caledon, the blue sign for St. Paul's and Dahlgren Road is gone. They the last grass cutter guys took that out. It was laying on the ground for a very long time. It's probably in somebody's garage now because the sign's completely gone.
Is it a road name sign?
Yeah, it's one of the blue signs.
The county maintains the road name signs.
Okay.
We maintain the route numbers. The county names them and maintains the blue names.
Gotcha. Okay. I will let them know about that. How about the warning light if you are eastbound Dahlgren Road coming up the hill to the traffic light at St. Paul's, Caledon, Dahlgren? I know I talked to you once in the past. There's that warning light blinking that there's a traffic light ahead. That pine tree is still pretty much covering that until you basically get right up to it. You can almost, when you drive up there, you almost have to get up underneath the pine tree to see that sign. And, with base getting busier and busier, maybe that one branch that's covering it, it would give vehicles a lot more stopping warning that there is a traffic light there for the folks that don't know that. But it's a big white pine branch that's covering that.
Okay.
But thank you for all you guys do for the county.
Thank you.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks again for coming out this evening, Mr. Beal. And I just want to thank you. I know I've been copied on some of the email exchanges with my constituent, Mr. Simonoff, regarding his concerns on 301. So thank you for your time in trying to answer him and address his concerns. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's always good when people are engaged and they want to learn more, and I'm happy to facilitate those discussions.
Ms. Bender.
I have a couple. The first one I'm going to mention, and a lot of people know I have a couple friends who live on Roseland Road, and then when I was visiting with them, they had complained about that there was not a good sign, especially there's a lot of elderly residents that live down there, to know where that left turn lane is so they don't go across the bridge and get charged coming back. So if you could just see if the sign was still there. I haven't been down on it a little bit, but
We'll check on
they'll always tell me if there is no sign. And then one other concern, this was brought to my attention. I'm not sure, it was brought to Mr. Stonehill's attention about the drainage ditches on Potomac Drive. You've been very nice in answering questions on it. Is that just something that you could just put on your radar? Because the person who's been reaching out to me is probably going to reach out again. So,
unfortunately, there's a low area about halfway down Potomac Drive, and it just drains to nowhere. So water just ponds up there. And it would take a significant, drainage project probably draining water back out under 301 to relieve that. So absent a fairly substantial drainage project, I'm not sure what the remedy would be, but certainly we've worked to clean ditches, and ditches convey water and they also store water. So we've tried to keep the ditches clean so there's a place for the water to go, so it's not sitting in the road and sitting in people's yards. But unfortunately, once it gets in the ditch, there's nowhere for it to go. Just a low-lying area there. I had hoped that there's a pipe underneath the road on the other side of the gate or the fence for the base, but that pipe actually drains back to Potomac. So they're getting water from the base. They're getting water from both ends of Potomac, and it just sits right there.
Well, appreciate you looking into it. And I do appreciate every time I reach out to you, you always come up with an answer. Might not be the next day, but you come up with an answer after thorough research, and I appreciate it. And then the last one, I didn't mention to this earlier, but I mentioned it last year. When you come off of Eden Drive, and for those of us that have to make that left turn onto 301, there's a substantial amount of pavement that's missing. So at night, and I've almost done it a couple times, fallen into a little hole right there if you're coming up and you're making that left. If you're hugging
On the shoulder?
on the little cut through, it's
On the
almost
crossover.
yeah, on the crossover.
We can take care of that.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Mr. Beal, thank you so much for coming out.
All right, thank you all. See you again in April, if not sooner.
Sounds like a plan. All right, we will move on to action items. I believe we have Mr. Clark, Department of Parks and Recreation. Change order request.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. On July 19th, 2022, the Board of Supervisors approved the reconstruction of the King George Tennis Center and awarded a construction services agreement to Finley Asphalt and Sealing LLC. Not knowing the weather conditions and planning for the fall, we did allocate $20,000 in contingency for the project, whether there would be weather delays that would cause us to make changes or if there were bad substructures. Due to weather conditions that prevented the completion of the project prior to the spring high school tennis season and prior to this winter, we had to install tennis lines outside the original scope of the project so the King George High School tennis teams can play, and as well that we will be able to have spring tennis for our constituents. The final parts of the projects will be completed once the temperatures reach 80 degrees, when the saw cuts and patching can be completed, and then the acrylic can be applied. These lines resulted in a change order of $5,146, which was budgeted under contingency for the project. I recommend that the Board of Supervisors do the following: authorize the county administrator to transfer $5,146 from project contingency to the construction line of the project, and execute the change order number 1 for the tennis center reconstruction project with Finley Asphalt and Sealing in the amount of $5,146.
Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Skupka.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark. So it was always, obviously, it's a tennis court. It was always going to need these lines, but because of delays, putting the lines in had to happen sooner than the construction schedule originally planned for.
Yes, so essentially we're about 80% complete with the project. We have a black asphalt surface. Obviously, when you look, our surface at the end will look like the US Open with the green and blue. So at this stage, be able to play tennis when there are no other public courts in the county. We had to put lines down to accommodate our high school tennis programs. Otherwise, they would be trying to use 2 courts on base, possibly 2 courts at Hop Yard, 1 court in Potomac Landing, and they wouldn't be able to practice all at the same time or host any matches.
Thank you. And so this is the first change order, am I correct?
This is the first change order
COO1?
and should be the only one.
Okay, and funds are already available in the project budget in the contingency. So it's not like we're taking money from somewhere else to help pay for the tennis court. The money is already in the fund for the tennis court. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have questions?
All right. I move to authorize county administrator to transfer $5,146 from the project contingency to the construction line of the project, and also execute change order number 1 for the tennis center reconstruction project with Finley Asphalt and Sealing in the amount of $5,146.
Second.
And we have a motion properly seconded. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Move on to County Administration Resolution to amend the previously adopted 2023 regular meeting calendar.
So at the last meeting, we had the calendar, and we failed to note that the first Tuesday in August is actually the 1st, and so therefore I think that we had given you a calendar that showed it as the meeting falling on the 8th, and that kind of pushed everything back. So that needs to be changed. And then I believe there was something about the November. The month of November might be the same. Is that correct?
So at the previous resolution, it was adopted for the single meeting months. The location was to be determined, so we firmed up that this space is available to the board, so that can also be included in the amended resolution.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions for staff? I'll entertain a motion on the resolution then.
I move to accept the resolution of the regular schedule for our meetings as presented.
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. No discussion items, so we'll move on to the county administrator's report.
So I'll be brief. We need you to go ahead and approve the special joint meeting with the Planning Commission that's set for next Tuesday night, the 24th. We think it would be useful for you to go ahead and do that.
All right. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Miller about that, or I'll be willing to entertain a motion for that?
And I believe that's at 6 p.m. Is that correct? I think that's what time it is.
I'll make a motion to approve a special joint meeting with the Planning Commission, January 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Second.
in the Rivercombe Building.
All right. We have a motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Miller?
Then we have employee anniversaries. Well, he got away, but the sheriff, 30 years, and he got out before we could wish him happy anniversary. But there's a number of people. Miss Hart is our Commissioner of Revenue, 7 years. A lot of fire and rescue. And let's see, Miss Greta Petty, who is with the Service Authority 30 years. And Chief Moody, 19 years with the with the fire and rescue. So a number of folks that are celebrating some pretty significant anniversaries, and we appreciate their years of service. I guess I have some more. So speaking of, one thing I would point out is just to let you know that effective today, Dean Hoagland, who was with the Service Authority as the Special Projects Manager, is now going to be moving over to engineering. As you know, with Mr. Rollins' retirement, and I believe his hope is that he can come back and work in a part-time mode, doing construction inspection. But in the meantime, we need to have that gap filled. And so Mr. Hoagland will be the engineering tech, and he will work with Bryce Young and also with Travis Cusenberry, and then probably begin training to become a construction inspector at some point. The dollars are basically a wash. Both salaries of Mr. Rollins and Mr. Hoagland were the same. So,
anyone have any questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Miller, I haven't seen the to-do list lately.
I'm sorry?
Haven't seen the to-do list lately.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to have that and we will have it on the meeting on the 7th. I'm sorry, but we will add that. And I know there's a number of things that have been added from the landfill advisory committee, some of the other things that are going on as well. So I will have that. We'll get that out to you before the next meeting.
Anything else, Mr. Miller? Okay. I believe we do then have a motion or a closed session.
I move the King George County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meeting for discussion and consideration of a personnel matter relating to the performance and appointment of the county administrator pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. I invite the county administrator, optional county attorney as needed because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will be reasonably aid the board in this consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3712F.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are in closed session.
I move the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed sessions were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Bender, do you certify?
So certify.
Collins?
Yes, sir.
So certify.
Mr. Stonehill?
So certify.
Chair certifies. We are back in open session. Any other business come before the board? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn
January 24th.
January 24th, 6 o'clock.
Boardroom.
Boardroom.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly seconded. Do we have any discussion? None? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.